This is cooperative rallying, and it's great as a 5 or 10-minute warm up, but this style of hitting is actually remarkably bad at developing your match tennis. And if we can understand why, you'll finally understand your plateaus and why you get tight in matches and why your practice can't replicate itself in matches, and we can fix all that. And it's because hitting like this is missing two critical elements of match tennis. First, variety, and second, distraction. Now, this video is about variety and how a lack of variety in practice tricks you into thinking you're making more progress than you really are. So first, we're going to talk about some things you need to do with your body, with your strokes, in order to physically succeed against variety. And then we're going to talk about how to modify your practice environment so you're actually forced to develop those skills and habituate them. And then once you get into matches, it'll feel the same. The first habit you need to build to succeed under variety is a more stable athletic base. Two things in particular: tilt at the hips. That'll engage a lot of the muscles back here and get your feet wider. Now, this is why this is so pernicious is what we're going to do is I'm going to grind this contact point over and over again on the forehand. A lot of times when you practice with no variety, if you watch my lower body, you'll notice that I'm not really doing any of the things I just said. My hips are pretty straight and my feet are pretty narrow, and so my movement isn't all that explosive or balanced. And yet, because of the low variety environment here, my forehands aren't even really that bad from a result standpoint. And so it is true that the lower body is an issue here, and technically I should fix that. But the real issue, the deeper issue, is the practice environment. The problem is you can feel like you're succeeding because of the low variety environment, and that environment is not forcing you to recruit this. So now what's what happens when the feeds are all over the place and I don't have the stable base? All of a sudden, like I'm getting lucky on a couple of these just because my hand is coming through the right way, but it's really, now you can see just how inadequate the mental process is. And when we compare it to practicing the kind of forehand that would work more in a match situation with that double bend at the hips, at the knees, and the wider stance, even though, at first when you watch the low variety environment, it might not seem like the performance is so poor. When you watch performance like this in the high variety environment, you can see just how lacking the previous iteration truly was. Now let's move on to how we develop swing mechanics to succeed under variety. Now we talked about stability through here in the last section. Now let's talk about stability through here. What we want to develop, every ground stroke, every overhead, we want to develop a very simple, controllable, stable unit that forms the contact action of our swing. That simple, stable, controllable unit is the foundation of executing against variety. And the reason is, as the balls get more varied, I use my legs and my trunk to adjust, but that simple, small unit goes through the ball the same way every time. Now, this is what happens when you end up playing not against variety in your practice. If I don't have that unit, if I kind of conceptualize the swing as, some kind of, this, right? This is going to work fine when I'm just grinding this exact ball, because I can learn the motion, like the exact motion that succeeds on this exact ball. So right now, I have no conception of that contact unit. I am treating the entire swing as one element. But the second the ball gets more varied, now, because that's the way that I'm habituating my swing, like I need to learn 100 different swings for 100 different shots. And so that ball, for example, why did I hit it 100 feet long? Well, because it's a completely different swing when the ball's up there than this one, which I know how to do. And so this is kind of the problem with the way your brain develops your tennis when there's no variety, is you can just get away with learning one exact motion and you can feel like you're succeeding and it breaks down under variety. So again, I want to show you the stable unit. The stable unit, now as the variety comes in, well, this is just the same thing, but I get a little lower. This is just the same thing, but I'm going to move in a little more and go a little straighter because I want to hit it higher. This is, I got to get low, but I hit the ground on the racket because I'm talking, but the stable unit is the exact same thing.
So no matter what shot I'm hitting, that final action of the forehand is the same. So no matter what shot I'm hitting, if I'm moving in, if I'm moving back, if I'm moving right, if I'm moving left. So now every shot I hit makes me better at every other shot because, this part of the swing is stable and controlled. Now, we have separate videos on this for every shot. How to discover this simplest effective forehand, or how to discover your, simplest effective backhand or simplest effective serve for every shot. So we won't go too far into the technical details of how to find this stable unit right now. But just understand that practicing, the swing as one unit against the same ball every time, it feels like you're good in practice, bad in matches, but really you're just not getting better at tennis. And in order to get better at tennis, you need to take your stable unit of the swing, put it through a wide variety of different balls, and then accelerate it as you want, flatten it out as you want, loop it as you want. And that is the kind of receiving variety that is going to translate into your matches. Now, one of the highest variety situations you find yourself in matches is the serve return. The problem is practicing serve returns is really boring, it's really slow, and that's I think why most people don't do it. So one drill you can do, you're like, coach, if you're talking about serve return, why are you standing at net? What you can do to mimic the time pressure and time variety of the serve return is you stand very close to the net and you have to hit the ball out of the air with a tiny swing. Now, again, we've talked about your simplest effective strokes that you need technically to be able to do this. Once you're there, you get in your return position, and you're taking a very tiny swing under time pressure, just like you would if someone hit you a very hard serve from the baseline. With the grip change on this, you'll have to keep the tempo down slightly, reset to that return position in between shots. Now, another way you can practice this, if you want to take the tempo even higher, is you just give the player variety, but on one side. So I'm only going to feed it to the forehand here. And now Alexa can just hold the racket in that forehand grip and work on handling this variety of tempo, succeeding under time pressure, and all these kind of things that get stressed on the return, even though she's doing, 10, 20, 30 reps a minute here. So look at all these awkward ones, right? That's kind of a serve that kicks up on you more than you thought, right? That's a serve that didn't go as fast as you thought it was going to go. Maybe a serve gets rocketed at you. You got to just block it. All these kinds of things that you tend to never, ever practice. We have just taken, in just this amount of time, 20, 30 reps, running a very, very similar mental process to what you run when returning serve. And, to serve and get this same practice in would have taken much longer.
So how do we practice variety from the baseline? Well, here's a great drill. I am forced to hit a different kind of shot, whether that's slice or lob or drive or angle, a different kind of shot each time. So Alexa here is practicing receiving variety, and I am practicing sending variety. Both skills are critically useful, especially for singles tennis. And then we can switch. So as you do this drill with a partner, switch. Now, Alexa must change the kind of shot every single shot, and I can hit whatever I want. So now I am practicing receiving variety, and Alexa is practicing creating variety. This environment is going to force you to develop the habits we've talked about through the rest of this video. Another great way to practice this is one player must return the kind of shot that they are sent. So in this one, Alexa must return the kind of shot that I send her. So when I send her a drive, she drives. When I send her a slice, she slices. When I send her a moonball, she moonballs. And, tactically, often that is a great way to play tennis. And so it's great to practice that in addition to practicing variety and handling it however you want to handle it. Also practice handling it by returning the same thing you get.
Now, we've talked about variety, but the truth is, sometimes mixed into that variety is a pattern that you're just bad at and can practice. And I want to go over one such pattern that's super common, which is the short, low approach shot. Very often, this is a ball that you see in a match. And this ball is the kind of ball that when you're practicing, you probably just let it double bounce. Maybe you don't even run for it. And then all of a sudden, you get into a match and you realize that this pattern where you move up to this ball, you get low, you execute, you pick a target, you execute your shot, follow it in net, execute the first volley. All of a sudden, you might realize, despite how much you have, quote unquote, practiced, you may have not actually practiced this pattern hardly a single time. And, these are the kind of balls that happen all the time in matches. Your opponent mishits a ball short. Your opponent plays a defensive shot and they don't hit the sweet spot and they end up dropping it low. And it'll be mixed. Some of the balls will be like this. And you have to be able to make that ball. And then, the very next defensive shot that your opponent tries to play, or maybe they just hit a rally ball and they shank their rally ball, it'll be like this. And all of a sudden, you got to be able to execute here. And all of these patterns are the kind of thing that, we say I'm playing bad in matches. But the truth is, are you good at this pattern? Like, have you practiced this? When you say you're playing well in practice, right? So Alexis just made like 5 in a row. Good first ball, good first volley. Well, can you actually do that? If we did this drill, would you actually have a high success rate winning these points? Because my guess is, a lot of times when we say that we are good in practice, it's actually just because things that sneak into the match aren't ending up in our practice, and we're not actually good at them yet. We have to practice them.